Yes, thank you very much, and good afternoon to your viewers. First of all, let me say that last year, the African Court issued an interim measure or a provisional measure in a case of Alfred Agbesi Weyomi versus the Republic of Ghana. Now, let me also state that Ghana has signed onto the African Court Charter and has ratified it. In fact, on the 9th of February, the President of Ghana deposited a ratified document, at the African Court, accepting the competence and the jurisdiction of the African Court. Okay. That is one premise. The second premise also is that the current Chief Justice, Justice Ofoe Akufo, is a former Vice President and later President of the African Court. And during her tenure at the African Court, she ruled in several rulings, gave interim measures, against countries like Mali, like Burkina Faso, like Sierra Leone, in cases, and ruled for interim measures, and all those countries complied. Now it is worrying that now it is on turn of Ghana. Now she's back home as a Chief Justice. The African Court, same where she served, has given a provisional measure in a case and asking the Supreme Court of Ghana to halt all proceedings, in that particular case, so that the African Court decide the case. Then they can see the next forward. Now the Chief Justice say no, they are not going to comply. In fact, the Supreme Court has made court's pronouncement that it is not bound by the African Court ruling. In fact, the Attorney General, also have in fact gone to the Supreme Court to file motions in execution of processes in the same case that they've been barred, from pursuing. And in fact, it is very worrying. And as a civil society organization and as a Ghanaian with full rights under Article 4 of the 1992 Constitution, that it is the duty of every Ghanaian to protect the 1992 Constitution. In the exercise of this right, I wrote a letter to the Chief Justice and asking questions on why the Supreme Court is in continuous violation of the African Court ruling, and also the Banjul Charter, and also the Vienna Convention of the Law of Treaties. Now, the Chief Justice in her first petition did not respond. But in the second petition that we wrote to the Chief Justice...
When was the date for that?
The first petition was written to the Chief Justice on the 4th of December 2017. The Chief Justice did not respond. Okay. Then we followed another petition again this year to the Chief Justice. Now, and this is the response she wrote to the letter. Okay. This is a response from the Chief Justice.
Okay. So in a letter, the previous one that you sent, so the previous petition, you sent a petition, you wanted to ask the question, which you just stated here. Yeah. Why is it violating, in your opinion,
yes, the African Court's
ruling? And then she did not give you an answer. Then you wrote a second one, petition. And then she gave you an answer. Yes. Before we go into that answer, they indicated that Ghana's courts are not subject to the regional court.
That is wrong.
Does that not make sense?
That is wrong. Now, Article 2 of the 1992 Constitution, on which this premise is being made, that Ghana's constitution is supreme, and any other law found to be inconsistent with the constitution to the extent of inconsistency be void. Now, when the constitution says that, now, the same constitution that says this gives rights under Article 40, that says that the president can execute or cause to be executed a treaty, an agreement, or convention. Now, any treaty executed under Article 40 will have to go to Parliament for Parliament to ratify it, approve it, and ratify it. Okay. Parliament have done that. And so once the treaty is ratified, it becomes part of our laws. And so you cannot say that that same law is inconsistent with our constitution, because it derives its powers from the same constitution.
What about the principle of separation of powers, where the executive, which gets into such agreements, is not necessarily the same as the judiciary?
No. You see, government is one, and we have three arms. Now, the executive will cause the agreement or the treaty to be executed. It will go to Parliament, which is a representation of the people, to ratify. Now, when these two people does it, it is on behalf of the government. It is not on behalf of the two arms. It is on behalf of the government. So the Supreme Court cannot say it is not bound by a decision taken or ratified by Parliament, which is a representation of the people. The Supreme Court is there to interpret laws. The Supreme Court does not make laws. And so the Parliament is the arm of government mandated to make laws. So Parliament make law, the Supreme Court cannot say it is not bound by the law.
What then, because the point that you've just made, that the Supreme Court cannot say they are not bound by the law, they've said it in court actually, that they are not bound by, and it came up by Mr. Woyeme's lawyers raised this case in court, and the court decided that they are not bound by the decision of the regional court, and they went ahead to hear the case. Was that when you wrote your question, your petition to the Chief Justice?
That was a serious violation.
Because you did not agree with that?
Yes, that was a serious violation. Now, it also violates the Vienna Convention, the law of treaties. Now, the whole world, before you can even join the UN, you have to sign the Vienna Convention. So the Vienna Convention, that governs all treaties in the whole world. So Ghana have signed the Vienna Convention also and has ratified it. Article 27 of the Vienna Convention says that no party can invoke a domestic law or use your internal law to justify your failure to perform a treaty obligation.
Okay.
That is clear in the Vienna Convention. And that is clear. What is happening now is in serious violation. If we don't take care, we are setting a bad precedent for Ghana when it comes to respect for international treaty obligations and also for international law.
Okay.
And I must admit, last year, there was a Ghanaian that was nominated to the ICC.
You sure?
Yeah. Now, the African Union withdrew their support for that Ghanaian candidate and supported a woman from Mauritius to the African Court. Why? Because of Ghana's continuous violation of the African Court
charter. Was that the reason
stated? Yes, that was the reason stated.
Okay. So your fear,
if we don't take care, now this posture by government is going to create a situation where it is going to be difficult for any Ghanaian to ascend one to the African court, also to an international court and other international.
So your concern is that Ghana is breaching regional laws. Now, this is the letter, the response that was.
Yes, and it is based on this response that we are saying the Chief Justice must be removed.
So this response basically says the same thing. Yes. It says, and I'm going to just go through the quick one in the conclusion. It says, in conclusion, the Supreme Court of Ghana, being the highest court of the land, is not bound by any decision, order, or judgment by any court or body, which is what the point that we've made. So based on the response that you got from the Chief Justice, you're not satisfied.
And it's wrong. And I must say that this is the most incompetent letter I've ever seen from the office of a Chief Justice.
Why do you say so?
Yes, it's very incompetent because the Chief Justice picked and chose provisions of our laws and then came out with a judgment. Meanwhile,
well, that doesn't make it incompetent as long as it is part of the law.
No, it is incompetent.
Let's go forward with the petition that you have at the moment and try and wrap up. So based on this, you're obviously not satisfied. You've gone ahead to write a petition.
Yes.
What's in this petition?
So the petition, what we are asking the President to do is that, one, the Chief Justice, for being privy to the Vienna Convention of the Law of Treaty, and also for being a former president of the African Court, and for being exposed to the rulings and the procedures of the African Court, for empaneling a judge to still sit on the case when an interim measure or a provisional measure from the African Court is still pending, has breached our law in Article 40, Article 73, and Article 75. And so we are invoking Article 146 of the 1992 Constitution, which provides as grounds for the removal of a Chief Justice. And one of the grounds for the removal of a Chief Justice is incompetence. And we believe that the Chief Justice, based on the response that she wrote to us, has demonstrated that she's incompetent for the high office of the judiciary.
What exactly in this letter makes her incompetent?
Because she picked and chose the various portions of the Constitution.
For example, which one did she use that she shouldn't have used?
Article 2, Article 127, Article 127, and Article 125. But the Constitution of Ghana is a full document. You read the Constitution
but you have taken a part of it. You have taken a part of it to commence this impeachment process.
No, we have.
So anybody can take parts of the Constitution. No, that's the point I want to make clear. That it is not wrong to take parts of the Constitution to make a point. Is it wrong?
For being a Chief Justice, when you're a Chief Justice, you are the highest officer of the judiciary. The judiciary is charged with the responsibility of interpreting our laws. For the judiciary to make this legal goof, it is unacceptable, and it's clear exhibition of incompetence by the Attorney General.
So how far are you going? Has this petition been presented to the Presidency?
Yes, and you can see the Office of the President signature on it.
So hopefully we'll be able to zoom in on this whilst we wrap up this conversation. This is the petition seeking to remove the Chief Justice from power, from office. You're also looking
and also
to remove
the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General, because one, the Attorney General invoked the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, because the law says that the Supreme Court cannot act suo motu unless through an invocation. And so when the Attorney General invoked, then for the Chief Justice to sit down and say, no, we cannot act because of the African court ruling, the Chief Justice also went ahead and perpetrated an illegality by empaneling a sole judge to sit on the case. So the two of them have breached the same provisions of the law, and they must be removed from office. And clearly, we are looking forward to the President to act. If the President does not act, the President to also, it will provide enough grounds for the President to also be impeached as well.
Okay. Did I give you timelines within which you should hear back from the presidency?
No, the Constitution provides, the procedure. The Constitution says that when the President receives this petition like this, he has to hand it over to a panel who will sit on the panel and look into the issues that we've raised. And we have all the evidences attached to it, all the evidences attached to it. And we are hoping that when the panel sit down, we'll be able to also be invited to put our case forward and provide enough reasons why we believe the Chief Justice, the Attorney General, and the Deputy Attorney General must be removed from office. Okay.
It's still early days yet. We will certainly be following this. Thank you very much for coming, Mr. Thompson. So, Mr. Thompson there is the Executive Director of a